Whoa, backfire. Hey, what's up everyone? Matt here. So the other day I was having breakfast with my father-in-law, and he was talking about, the upcoming maple syrup season, sugaring time or whatever you call it. And I was talking about how much I was enjoying my new 1968 Alpine that I just recently revived. And then he started saying how, I'd like to have a sled to go around the, go around the bush when it's sugar season. And you know what they say the worst time to buy a snowmobile is? Well, when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, and that's kind of the situation we're in right now. So it's definitely not the time to buy a snowmobile. But then it came to me, a magnificent idea. The 1975 Olympic. Yes, what a magnificent idea. So we are back in the garage, and 1975 Olympic. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So I'm going to pull it out. I'll work on it outside today. It's a pretty warm day, so we'll get it out, and I'll tell you a bit about that sled. So lo and behold, 1975 Olympic 340, not the 440. Now I chose to shoot outside today. But, I got a lot of shadow and I got a lot of wind. So anyways, we'll see what kind of video it makes. But I didn't feel like setting up the lights in the garage. And I'm kind of on limited space because of the MXZ. And anyhow, so 340, it's a 2-cylinder fan cooled. This is a sled that was given to me by my uncle. And it was given to him by his neighbor. And this is a kind of sled that was sitting behind his shed for, I guess, several years. At which point he said, hey, if you want it, you can take it. When I got it, the seat was completely finished. It was covered. There was probably about 1 inch or 2 of moss in the running boards. But other than that, the sled, one thing that really jumped out at me was the fact that the track, I know it's not the original track. It looks like someone would have done some work on it and cleaned it up. The slide rail was in great shape, and the track was changed. It wasn't brand new, but I mean, it was a heck of a lot better than most 1975 tracks you would see. So that was good news. Did a little bit of work. I recovered the seat and got the engine running, and this sled ran absolutely great. So at the time, once I got this guy running, one of my grandfather's friends had a place next to a canal, and I took it out there. I left it at the guy's place, and I would go out and ride on that canal, a couple kilometers at a time, full throttle, having a great time. The sled ran great, and the engine ran perfect. The clutch, everything was well balanced. Everything just ran like it should. So I'm not sure if the engine was rebuilt at the same time as they redid the track, or whether or not maybe just didn't have a lot of mileage overall, but that sled was a blast. Then comes one morning when I guess 17-year-old stupid me, it was like minus 20 degrees outside, and this thing was adjusted probably more around -5. I'm talking Celsius. And basically, I don't really remember why, but I would have taken the air box off it. And the first thing I noticed when I got on the canal was, man, this thing is ripping. Like, this thing is running like there's no tomorrow. I mean, this thing was awesome. It was running more like, like a 340 RV, like it would just pop. So that was awesome. And went about a kilometer, started turning back, and then I started losing power, significantly losing power, until eventually it stopped. Couldn't get it started again. Pulled it back to the garage, opened it up. I melted the piston, so I melted the top end on it. My uncle at that point we had a 1976 Nuvik that he sold, and he ended up buying the engine back from the guy. Anyways, he says, we got the old Nuvik motor, 340, just take it, put it in. Okay, put it in. When I mentioned before that the engine was running smooth and everything, that's how I knew, because once I saw the new engine running so horribly, I realized that, man, that other engine was in great shape. So what I did was I ordered pistons off eBay, and I'm not too proud of it, but again, stupid 17-year-old me, I bought Chinese pistons, or no name, they weren't Weisco, they weren't NOS Bombardier, they were just, $40 for 4 pistons kind of deal. I think they were 30 or 40 over. I'd have to check. And I ended up rebuilding the motor. So luckily, the gentleman that had the house next to the canal, he had a machine shop, a home machine shop. That's what he did for a living. And we put the cylinders on his lathe. We bored them out. I put the oversized pistons in, new gasket, set everything up, and I got that sled back running tip-top shape. And then what happened was I would run it for a year, then not use it for a couple years, then try to start it, wouldn't start, take apart the fuel pump, the carburetor, get it started, run it for that year, not use it for a couple years, and then it was kind of just, I just repeated that process. So if you want to take a wild guess at what we're going to be doing today, this sled's been sitting for probably about 5 or 6 years now, but I'm not even going to try starting it. We're going to rebuild the fuel pump, rebuild the carburetor, and get this sucker running again. When I said we were going to be rebuilding the carburetor and fuel pump, that's not all, because this sled was kind of cannibalized at one point. I had my Everest that broke down here, and they ended up stealing one coil off it, and I took the pull cord, the crank recoil starter off it. So I got that in the car, and I'm gonna put the recoil back on. I'm guessing I'll have to redo it because I know if I took it off, it wasn't running well. And gonna put the coil back on, or a coil back on, and then we're just gonna open up, take the carb off, open it up, just clean it out. And the fuel pump is, here it is. Oops, you see it? Yeah, right there. So that guy too, we're gonna take it off, clean it out. I don't know why, but even though it ends up running great once you do that, I mean, if you just squirt gas in it, try to get going, it's gonna start, but it doesn't want to start properly until you end up doing that. I mean, I've known this, this is from experience. Several years of this particular sled. Once it gets going, it runs great, but if you leave it sit too long, well, I guess that's what ethanol gasoline's doing to us all nowadays. All right, let's get that carb off. We shall begin by loosening off the throttle cable. Okay. And this bracket, we just take this bracket right off, and then that way there we won't have to play with any throttle cable adjustments. Yeah, the 1975 Olympique that we're working on here was a fun sled to ride. It had quite a bit of takeoff, but then it kind of, you would assume that it would have a lot more. You'd give it, a quarter throttle and go, man, this thing rips. Imagine if I give it full throttle, and there wasn't much of a difference if you were to give it full throttle. So, I'm not sure what the top speed on it was, probably, I don't know, 40, 45 miles an hour. But nice, reliable sled, light, easy to, an all-around good sled, and which is exactly why I'm going to recommend a sled like that to my father-in-law. We were looking at stuff like Tundra 2s, the old 1980, 1990 Tundras. But right now they're not, let's say they're not that affordable. And I know you can get better deals in the summer. So we'll see if we can make do with this for this year. Who knows, you might not even like it. Nice and close quarters. Now I could also, this, intake manifold is in 2 parts. You could take the carb off, like what I'm doing, or there's 2 other bolts that are much easily accessible, and you can pull the whole assembly out. At that point, you can even see the pistons. And you know what? Normally, I wouldn't do that, but for the sake of the video, let's do it that way. That's a great idea, Matt. All right, so we should be good to pull the carb off with the intake manifold on it. Try not to lose our washers, and then we'll be able to have a little look inside the cylinders, see how they're doing. Now there should be some, I think, some rubberish gaskets down there. This is some remnants of previous. Almost lost this part of the coil. Oh, the gas lines. We were so excited to take the carb off, we forgot to take the gas lines off. And these guys are still kind of pliable, so let's see if we can save them. Most probably. So, all right, so we got, let's see, you guys seeing this over here? All right, so the top one would be your, I'm guessing, the fuel intake. Let me check and see here. Yep. So this is the top one. The clear one's the fuel intake. The black one is the return line, and then there's a primer line. Let's see if we can get this over here. Primer line right there underneath. Word of warning: sometimes this thing will come undone, and then your sled runs, you know, too lean, and you'll be having all kinds of issues not running properly. So sometimes that'll just kind of come off if you're fiddling with the carb for some reason. Let's see if we can get this guy off. That's real nice to see. This line's still nice and flexible. Must be some good quality line I used back in the days. I wouldn't be surprised. This guy off in here. If you don't cooperate, I'm just going to cut you. Kind of like in prison. If you don't cooperate, you get cut. There we go. Cooperation. So this here is in, what do we got here? We got an HR. Well, it's an HR carburetor, in case you haven't already figured that out, but HR 170B. And that B, I remember, I'm not sure, I think the 75, this is probably the carb off the 76, and I'm not sure, but it's got a fixed high speed and an adjustable low speed. And I think if you had a HR 170A, I think, I'd have to check, I remember it was off by like one letter or something, and this was an adjustable high-speed jet. So I'm kind of surprised that I had this guy on here. Usually I like to have full control, but I guess it ran fine like that, so that's how it's going to stay. So we got the carb off. Let's get the fuel pump off, and then we'll clean it out. But first, let's take a look at those pistons. Okay, so I'm going to move in here with the, put the flashlight on my phone. I'll try to get a good angle. What do we got here? Here we got one piston. Let's move this guy up and down. Like I said, this engine probably has about, I don't know, 15 or 20 hours on the rebuild. And, okay. If you notice that skirt, it's pretty impeccable. Let's see how those rings. Can you see the rings? Okay, just barely. Okay, how about side number dose? All right, I can't really see what you're seeing. Maybe I'll see it in the video. I don't know if you can see the edge of that. Am I focused on the piston? Or let's hope so. What's that big? Get my head in there. Oh my! Is that some wear? Does that look like wear? Hold on, let me get a better look. So I had to take a few seconds to compose myself, but yeah, that's it. My nightmare became a reality over here. So yeah, we got some wear. Let's see if I can get that without the glare. But yeah, we got that. We got a bit of wear on that piston up around the ring. Strangely. So we'll pull the spark plugs to check and see what they look like. But you know, I know I was running this thing 50 to 1. I'll probably be running it maybe a little bit richer. in oil, and that's it. The other side's looking fine. So you know, this is the, you know, there's a fan side, right? You know, we got the fan side obviously getting a little more cooling than the non-fan side, but it's on the intake port, which is usually, you know, that's usually cooled by gasoline coming in, unless it was debris that got in through the carb. You know, there's a bit of an air box, but anyhow, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm sure the sled's going to run fine regardless. So let's carry on. Let's get the plugs out just for fun, and then we'll tackle that fuel pump. I'm not sure if I said it already, but it's incredible how, you know, just a couple years of sitting in a barn, you know, things can get old. And you know, this sled was pretty clean when I stored it, but you know, throughout the years everything just kind of got a little bit corroded. So yep. All right, this is the plug off the good cylinder. A little bit oily, but that's okay. Let's take a little look at the plug out of the cylinder that has the damage. A little oily as well, and maybe a little bit leaner. You know, a little bit more of a. Here, let's compare the two here. See, this one's carboned all over. This one's got a bit of an area where it's, you know, with that, I can't really say it would have been burnt off. Both plugs. All right, one of them's a B8 HS, and the other one's a BR8 HS. Does that mean what? R internal resistance or something? And the other one, I think everything's the same on them except R. I think R means resistance, but anyhow, we'll check and see. I got new plugs for it, so we'll check and see what it takes. But nothing too crazy there. We'll take a little look inside the cylinder. This is the bad side. Okay, so they're 10 over. Let's take a look at this. It's 10 over. You know, you can see how little this engine ran. You can still see the marking. 10 thou over, and yeah, I mean, it's not. I can't say there's a whole lot of crap in there. I mean, it's pretty clean. Like I said, there's not too much. There hasn't been too much. Whoops, where are we here? There we go. There hasn't been too much runtime on this guy. This is on the other. This is the fan side. I'll try to get it up. Right there. Yeah. So again, you know, that so little runtime on it. Could it be the fact that it's just cheap pistons? Probably not. I think there might have just been some debris or something that got in there, or I was running too lean at some point. Yeah, I'm not going to get caught up on it. We'll see. We'll see how the sled runs, but I'm not too worried. I mean, it's an old beater, right? This isn't a piece of museum. This isn't a museum piece, folks. All right, let's get back to work. So the fuel pump has 3 lines, I guess, coming in or coming out of it, depending. You know, there's one line, I guess, coming in, which is at the back, which is the fuel line, and then there's the fuel outlet that goes to the carb, and then the third line coming up to the top of it is the pulse line or the suction line coming from the crankcase. We're going to go ahead and just pull off the fuel inlet line and the crankcase line, and then we'll just, it's only held on with one. I think it's supposed to have 2 bolts, but this one's only held on with 1. The amount of times I had to take this guy off, I guess I decided to speed the job up for my future self. Well, thank you past Matt. So we'll get this guy off right here. And if you can avoid dropping nuts and bolts into the base of the snowmobile, that's always a good thing, because it's real hard to fish them out. So here we go. That's a McCuney fuel pump. These are pretty standard. There's the round ones. I think the round ones might be, I remember someone telling me they were for higher volumes of gasoline. You tend to see them on that's it, the big McCuney carbs. This is just a little square pump. just a little diaphragm, or not diaphragm, a little fuel pump, little kind of check valve flaps in there, and we'll open it up. I'll show you what it is. So so that's it. We'll take this guy apart. So yeah, we're getting there. Let's go up to the tool bench. So we got the fuel pump, we got the carburetor. We'll start with the fuel pump. So nothing easier, really just removing 4 screws and splitting it apart. Now I'm not gonna over take apart these things. Like, I'm really just opening up just to clean them out slightly. These aren't, it's not like I'm trying to redo a carburetor or a fuel pump that, you know, hasn't ran for 20 years and's been sitting in a barn. I mean, this guy's been kind of sitting in a barn, but so let's open up and see if there's any gasoline in it. Okay, a little tight. Okay, hold on. Try to pry it open here. Let's get a bit more leverage. And I don't want to damage. Man. Okay, this guy's tight. Because I don't want to damage. There we go. Ooh. All right. I don't want to damage the gaskets because I'm not necessarily, so look at this, I'm not necessarily going to change all the gaskets. So you can see, look at this residue, a little scribe here, yeah. Look at this kind of sludgy residue. You know, you could see that, you know, even if I would have gotten this guy started and try to prime it up, like, where's all this crap going to go? It's going to go right into the carb, and that's going to cause you issues. So, you know, trying to get away with something, it doesn't take very long. You can see that the plastic is starting to bubble. Now, when they're new, they don't necessarily have that bubble, which means that this gasket is, well, sort of good, sort of bad. Let's put it that way. It might work, it might not. So I'm guessing I'm going to keep it. I'm not even sure if I brought another one, but we'll just try to take it apart. Okay. There we go, that's one. Oh, great. Great, my workbench is coming apart. There. Okay, so this guy, take this guy off. So we'll say this is the middle piece. This will be the base piece. Peel them off real gently if you don't want to, if you want to reuse them. You can sometimes get away with it, and that's what we'll be counting on today. You could feel it's all grimy, sticky. So it's not to the point where it's 100% gelled up, but look at this, like, it's just oily garbage in there. So we've got to clean this guy out. This guy will just, you know what, we'll put this guy like this. It's got little locator pins, so when you put it back together, you know, as long as you get the order correct, you know it's gonna go back together easily, and you don't necessarily have to mark too much because you have the locator pins. I'm really worried that this guy's gonna break. You know what? I'm gonna leave it on here. This is just the sealing gasket, so I'm gonna leave it on because I don't want to tear it in a corner and have to worry about dealing with that. We'll just get the crap out of this thing, just like that. Okay. Here's a little bowl, and here's what we're going to be using, a little bit of brake cleaner. And we're just going to, like I said, I would have enjoyed having maybe a brush. Mind you, I didn't say that. I thought it. So like I thought, I would have enjoyed having a brush, but I don't. So we'll just spray it out and wipe it down. And really all we're doing is trying to get whatever residue and gunk is out of there to just make sure that we have a nice fresh when the gas gets in there, it's not going to be pulling out all kinds of garbage with it. Try to find, okay. Like I said in my last video, you know, sometimes when you don't have an air compressor, you can get away with one of these cans, and you could just blow out all your orifices. Whoops. You really blow everything out. Whoops. With that. Like so. And you know, you can do a real nice little, I don't know, what is this, junkyard mechanics, or just kind of, you know, out in the field mechanics. Yeah, you can do a bit of field mechanics. All you need is a little bit of brake cleaner and a rag, maybe one of those red straws. I'm going to be real gentle with these gaskets. Like I said, I don't want to damage them. I just want to get all the grime off them. So that's one. Go, and that's two. And then this guy, got the pot back on here. Perfect. Great. Just like that. Nice and blown out. Just make sure we don't have any crap on the sealing edges, that they're kind of dry. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And this guy is ready for reassembly. All right, so like I said, we got the little locator pins. And you can see where stuff lines up. Like you see, these are basically little check valves, these little flaps. When the fuel comes in, it'll kind of one way, and then the pressure will push it back shut, and then it'll allow it go out the other way. And this diaphragm over here is what's pumping up and down, making that pressure that's coming in from that suction line, you know, coming from the crankcase pulses. So that's how it works. And then, like I said, there's only one way to put it back on. So even though I wasn't too careful at how I took it apart, you just use these two locator pins and you can line everything up perfect again. Same thing with this guy. Make sure no creases or anything, and then get this guy back on. I'm guessing like this. Yep, perfect. We'll get our screws back on. I just kind of, well, like anything you put back together, you know, I sort of get it finger tight, you know, just barely touching. And then I do a final pass or two more final passes to really sandwich it down nice and even, just like that. And I keep the pressure on my part while I'm doing it, just so nothing moves around underneath. You know, especially when you have a bunch of gaskets all sandwiched together. You kind of want to make sure that nothing gets creased or moves around. There we go. One last little tighten. That's it. So fuel pump is done. Next up, carburation. So because I took this guy apart with these bolts here, and there's a gasket that goes along here, but that's already on the motor. I'm going to make my life even easier. I'm going to tighten these. I started loosening these guys up, but I'm going to tighten them back on, and we're going to put it back on like this. And like I said, because I'm not doing a big carb overhaul, you know, I'll just take this part off here where the where I guess the fuel, well, I guess the fuel inlet or what. Yeah, it's not even the fuel inlet, so yeah, we'll open it up just to see the needle valve and stuff, make sure nothing's jammed up in there. Take the jets out, shoot it out with some brake cleaner, and then that'll be it. Then we'll be ready to get it back on the sled. Okay. Okay, so these guys are tightened back up. Yeah, we'll take this guy apart over here. Oh, I'm gonna get a bigger screwdriver. All right, we'll get this thing off here. Again, just slack everything off first and take all the screws out. Whoops, not very big. Usually these things are like 1.5 inches long because you got the whole stack with the fuel pump and everything. You know, this guy's got the external fuel pump, so you don't have all the extra hardware. You just have this little, basically it's just a cap, a cover that gives you access to the internals, namely the needle valve. I'll just crack it open. There we go. It's got a little diaphragm. Again, we'll be real careful not to break it so we can reuse it properly. And this guy's got locating pins, so you know there's only one way that guy's going to go back on and line up all the holes. So here we are in here. Not too sure. Yeah, see that needle stuck in there, which is, you know, that's your fuel. Your fuel comes in from here and then passes through that needle valve, and the diaphragm basically, once it's full of enough fuel, it'll come and will basically release and allow this to close. Whereas then when it starts requiring fuel, it'll push and that valve will fall in and more fuel will come in. But if the valve stays stuck at the bottom, well, you can try all you want, but you'll never be able to get it to suck in any gas. So this is always, you know, always a culprit. Look at that. It's stuck. So we'll just get it out. It's just going to be a little bit of grime, a little bit of crap in there. We blow it out and we're good to go. Now we'll, this guy I know is running properly, so we'll actually count the amount of turns getting these jets out. So where's my screwdriver? What do we got here? Probably 3/4, but we'll see exactly what. That's half. 1. Oh, I'd say that's 1 1 1/8. 1 1/8 on the low. Okay. Well, that's where we'll put it. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, it might be 1 turn out on the low on this one. I'm not too sure. We'll see. Make sure we don't lose whatever washer, little washer and a little O-ring that's in there. I like to put that, whoops, I like to put that back on. And then we'll see. You guys see this? That needle's in pretty nice condition. perfect, just the way we like to see it. And then the high speed is actually closed, and hold on. We'll get this cap off, and I think there's a jet behind there. That's kind of how the way this thing works. I don't want to try to get this cap off. Man, guy's on there. So it's just a cap, and then inside you have a jet, and we can take the jet out if we'd like, but I'm pretty sure I just shoot a bit of brake cleaner in there. We'll see it squirt up into the carbs somewhere, so yeah, try to get this debris out of here. Remember the debris that could have caused my cylinders scoring? Yeah, not too happy about that, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so we'll just make sure everything is fairly clean. You know what, let's get this over this. Whatever holes you can get to, that's what you got to do to clean it out. You just got to squirt them out. I wonder if this guy's got a hole. See that inside here. See? That's your high speed. That's your high speed right there. Good. And that's all we're going to do. Let's get the return line. Wonder fuel. Wonder fuel indeed. All right, shake it off. And there we go. That's it. Now again, not a, last video I did was the Alpine video when we took the carb apart. Kind of same thing, not a very extensive overhaul, but good enough just to get it running. And when you're out here in the field, you don't necessarily feel like getting yourself into more trouble than you're already in. Sometimes you start taking stuff apart and you break something or you strip something, or you realize, man, and I'm not set up to put it back together or to fix it. So you just got to do what you got to do to get it running, and that's enough. Okay. We'll just, in case this guy was a little oily. Whoops. My setup today is a little bit better than last video. I mean, now I'm kneeling down on the concrete floor. Last time I was up against a tool bench, and man, that was not comfortable. I was at arm's length. It was a disaster. All right, well, we got it done. If you guys didn't see my Alpine video, if you think this one's cool, go check out the 68 Alpine video. You'll love it. Alright, this guy goes in like that. Watch out with that little spring. Now this carb's been opened up several times before. As you can see, screws are kind of worn, and you can see the two, what do we call them, frost plugs or Welsh plugs or what, these two over here were already changed. Bombardier, when they've never been changed, they're all nice and round. These guys have been banged in. You take these out, you drill them out, and you pop them out. If you have to have access to other orifices, like if your carb is real bad, like I mean really, really bad, well, that's what you got to do. So let's just check and make sure that that needle valve opens up. We'll blow in it. We'll do the old blow method. Good. So it's working. Perfect. So that's that. Diaphragm. Put it back on. Where am I locating? Here we go. Perfect. And this guy. All right. What do we got here? This? No. Go to the next one. Like this. Yes. Perfect. Now the danger when you get into these old carbs and you take them apart non-stop, or you know, these cars have been taken apart 20, 30 times in their lives, well, threads start getting weak, fasteners start getting weak, you know, you're always at risk. Like I was saying, you don't want to take apart more than you have to, because you figure I could break one of these bolts, screwing it back on, I could strip the casing, I could, you know, you got to watch out, but you never know. Maybe the last guy that took it apart used a little bit too much power. Might have been a little more powerful than yourself and caused some irreparable or irreversible damage. And then it breaks when it's in your hands. So who knows? You're always at risk. And it's fun when you take apart something really old and you kind of tell that, man, maybe no one ever took this apart because everything just looks so perfect. And if you can give yourself a personal goal, you know, you say, I'd like to take something apart and have no trace of it, not any damage, nothing, so that you know that you did as little wear as possible, and that maybe the next guy is not going to have any issues. Anyways, if you can, you can. Great. So that's done, that's done, that's done. Carb complete. Let's go back to the sled and try to wrap this up before it gets dark. So one thing about these fuel pumps is you can see, like I said before, you know, you have the pulse inlet, but you also see the arrow. There's an arrow on it here saying, you know, this is in, and then here, this is out. I left the line on the side that I know was going to the carburetor, but you know, you never know. If this is your first time doing it and you're not too sure, well, that's a little something you can pay attention to, and it'll get you out of trouble. Try to get this on without dropping anything into the base, into the oily belly of this beast. Okay. Little lock washer right there, and got kind of a double protection. It's got a little lock washer and it's got a lock nut. They really wanted to make sure that it didn't come apart, but you know, it makes sense because these things do end up vibrating quite a bit, and you don't want anything coming apart in the trails. Get that one bolt back on, even though are there two holes? No, there's only one hole. So I'm not even sure, you know, this might not even be the correct fuel pump for this sled, but it might be, might not be, I don't know. But yeah, it only has, I guess, one hole to keep it on. Now we'll put the pulse line back in. And did I mention it before? We're real lucky that all these hoses are real pliable still. Good. Carburetor time. So like I mentioned before, there's a gasket deep inside that, well, I guess, little cavity. And that's basically what ends up sealing up against this little ridge. Hold on, I got two arms here. This little ridge over here. So you got to make sure that that's not obstructed, and then you just pop it on. Okay. Put our two lock nuts or lock washers. Sorry. And then our 2 regular nuts. Good. We'll put our fuel lines back on. So we have the fuel inlet line. Goes on the bottom. There we go. And then the fuel return, which has, whoops, sorry about that, guys. Fuel return that has the small orifice, little baby orifice. So, get that guy back on there. All right. And then last but not least, our throttle cable. Get that through like that, and then there we go. Get this little bolt on there. Sorry if you can't see what I'm doing. It's the only camera angle I have right now going. Good. Then we just adjust the throttle linkage. Make sure it's all the way back. There we go. Good. We'll check for proper movement. That's all the way up, all the way down. Wonderful. Now what did I forget to do? Adjust my low speed. So what do we say? 1 1/8 about? Yeah. So here we go. Half. 1, we'll say about 1/8. That's where we start. Good. So let's get a new coil on there, put the plugs back in, and get the recoil back on. And then we should be good to, well, check the gas and see if the gas is old and get it started. We're getting there. I have I have a nice old school Bosch coil with the original Bosch metal cap that I'm going to put on. This was off the Everest, so I'm pretty sure it works. We'll put it on and see. But like I said, these old Bosch coils last pretty darn long. All I have is one bolt, so I don't know, I would have probably stolen something off it at one point. But again, just to get it started for today, we'll be okay with that. Good. Now we'll just try to wire up whatever was taken apart off it. And then this guy should have, okay, this is the ground on this one. All right, we'll put it on this side. Like that. Maybe that's this little white thing was for. There we go, that looks good. And same thing over here. Good. Let's check for spark. Okay, so before we check for the spark, we got to put the recoil back on. So this is the recoil off the Everest. I don't know, I guess I did a switcheroo back in the days. Fan looks fine, so I know I took it off because it was giving me problems. Hopefully it'll work on this one just enough to get it started at least. And then, you know, if we have to, we'll take it apart and redo it. I know that the little hub on the inside, the flange or whatever it's called, is pretty chewed up. You know, that's kind of typical on older sleds. But yeah, this guy's got it kind of bad. So we'll see how well it works, but yeah. Two, and I'm sure we can get a third one in there. Here we go, right there. I'm blocking your angle, but just bear with me. There we go. So as you can see, these aren't the original bolts, but I guess it's what I had in metric at the time when I would have been working on this back in the days. Grandfather worked for Kraft General Foods, and needless to say, he had a lot of stainless steel fasteners, I guess, or access to them. That's good. And all right, that's good. That'll be good enough. Perfect. Does it? Oh. All right. Well, stupid me. We'll tune back in when this is fixed. Okay, so I took the time it took to replace or to fish the wire back out of there, and not the wire, the rope, and then I started melting the tip with this crappy little torch because that's all I got. Ouch! Because that's all I got. That I don't have a little torch or anything on me, a little flame throwing torch. So I got to try to get this tip a little pointier so I can fit it through that handle. This is like the slow method, but at least I got something. Once you get it nice and hot, usually you take a rag and you just kind of see like this, you get it kind of pointy, and then you can fish it through properly. There we go. Should get in there. Okay. Should go. There we go. And that's it. Make a little knot and we're done. Finally get to check for spark. Good. Perfect. Okay. That. Good. Perfect. Spark. All right, let's get a little spark check. Try to get in there. Now, it's a very faint spark, but there is a bit of spark nonetheless, and we'll try to get it started with that. I'm not too sure. I don't know if you can see it. I saw it before, so anyways, we'll see if it's enough to get this thing started, but very, very faint spark, so we'll see. But let's get the plugs back in and prime it, yeah, and see if it starts. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of gas into the cylinders, and that way there, we'll see if the faint little spark that we had is enough to get it to fire. At which point, if it is, I'll check and see if the gas is any good, and maybe we'll flush the tank or something, or at least just drain some of it out and put some fresh gas in. This is going to be the longest that it's ever been sitting since I overhauled it, you know, 20 years ago. Time flies. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, and let's see if those little itty bitty sparks were able to get it to fire. Sounds good. All right, it kind of fired, so let's work on the gas and get us to start. So if you guys saw my last video with the Alpine, or one of my last videos, I had to do the old gas siphon trick. So we're going to do it again. I taped it on the bottom of this little fuel gauge stick or what, and we'll try to get some gas out of it. Didn't get it in my mouth this time, which is wonderful. And that's it. So, well, great. Got to keep it nice and low. I don't think there's too much gas left in that tank, but we'll get as much as we can out. Put some fresh stuff in, and I guess put all the odds on our side. So I finished siphoning out the gas. I put some new gas in. I got 50-to-1 in it now, but I'll probably, if it ends up running, I might richen it up a bit, like I said. Try to give that piston a chance. And yeah, let's see if it starts. I don't know if the primer works on it. It'd be great if it did. Sometimes the primer sort of gets working like mid-season, you know? If not, we'll just give it a bit of the old... Whoops. Forgot to put the primer hose back on. Remember that famous primer hose I was talking about? Yeah. Gotta get that back. Get that guy back on. All right, let's try it out. If we can get that gas up, Oh, backfire. Oh, I'm seeing gas moving. Once it gets that gas in, it should take off. We'll just let it warm up, but that gas went up. Let's see. I took the plugs out and I put those old, well, the plugs that were in it originally when we took it apart, I put those in. Maybe those are the Miracle plugs, we'll see. Looks like it was just the plugs. We put those old nasty plugs back in, and that's it. Still not running super great, but I'm gonna play around with it a bit, and I want to lube up that track because it was kind of giving hits. So shoot a bit of oil on the slide. You know, this thing hasn't ran in, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, so we'll give it a little bit of oil and maybe take it out for a little ride and see how it likes its resuscitation. So when I lube up a slide suspension, I'm not sure if this is the right way, but I just use white lithium grease. And oh no, you gotta be kidding me! My can failed me. Damn it! So we'll try that again. Got to go with Plan B, which is, I guess, the manual non-aerosol application of some white lithium grease. I don't know if I have enough left, but yeah, main part to do is this over here. When your truck starts knocking and stuff, usually you kind of lube it up in this general area here, like that, and like that. Let it kind of work around, and I'll just go and put a bit of grease all along the bottom to the other side too. And then usually after a couple spins, this thing's good to go. Don't forget, you can grease up all your zerts. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna try to grease up the track and try to get it run a little smoother before we take it out into the snow. I just checked online, and the low speed jet setting is 1 turnout. So I did that. I lubed up the secondary pulley. I put the airbox back on, and I greased kind of both sides. And yeah, let's see if it runs a little better with the carb adjustment in the airbox. The track isn't knocking anymore, so that grease helped out. It doesn't seem to want to, I don't know, the idle seems like it's going down on it, but yeah, I think that's going to be good enough to take it out for a little spinneroo, and yeah, we'll see how this thing goes. So that's it. We fixed it up, and pretty happy with the results. There's still a little bit more fine tuning to do, but overall, it was a good day. Getting dark, so we got to pack it in. But that's it. So 1975 Olympic 340 revival. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for next time. Signing out.